When I was a kid, I saw water caustics for the first time in Finding Nemo. Chaotic lights dancing underwater. It truly hit me how chaos, often monstrous, can transform into the utmost beauty. So I took it upon myself to show you how easy it is to recreate it, or rather fake it, with few lines of code. Let it be art, science, nature, or even magic, we would be coding it today. So if you enjoyed the first gem, you're in for another treat. But what exactly are caustics? Water caustics are the bright wavy patterns of light you see when sunlight shines through water or glass. They happen because these transparent materials bend light in different directions, focusing the light on certain areas. Eyeglasses and lenses use the same concept, and in the science literature it's called refraction, aka bending of light. So we will be simulating that with JavaScript, Three.js and 300 lines of code. But the implementation is for later. Now let's understand the algorithm behind implementing it. Starting from any point underwater, we can shoot an infinite number of rays toward the surrounding area. Rays that hit the water surface, of course, change their direction, and after that, if they hit a bright spot, it will bring illumination, it will lighten up the undersea point. But the catch is, computing that is impossible, so what can we do? Instead of shooting indefinite rays, let's sample it with one ray sample. That if we want to have real-time results, real-time rendering. So, let's shoot a ray towards the direction that will bring most of the light. Thus, let's shoot it upwards, then calculate the refraction, finally get the light intensity, the light illuminating that point. But why we shoot it vertically, or specifically in that direction? Since we know that water absorbs light, so intuitively the direction upward will bring most of the light, because it has the shortest path. But how to calculate the refraction, you may ask? Simply by using this equation proposed by Foley in 1996. The T here stands for the refracted ray, the N is the normal of the water surface, aka which direction the wave is facing, the E is the vertical ray direction, the ray that we shot earlier. The IOR is the index of refraction, aka the ratio of light bending when refracted. Just don't worry too much about the index of refraction. Memorize that the water index of refraction should be 1.33 approximately, but in our case, since the ray will be exiting the water, it should be 1 over 1.33. Again, to recap, for each point on the ground, get the upward direction, use the equation we described earlier to calculate the refraction direction. Finally, check for the incoming light from that direction. This produces caustics, absolutely. But the real question is, can we do better? And the answer is yes. There is actually a trick discussed in the article, but despite it being a non-intuitive trick, it outputs similar results. Let's actually calculate the distance between the wave surface and the ground opposite to it. And if the distance is large, then we'll say no light going to the point underneath the wave. And to calculate the distance, we can use the line-plane intersection algorithm. And in this video, we'll be implementing both techniques, the like button refraction technique and the distance subscription trick technique. To follow along, download the Spoofy's Cal 3D model from Sketchfab page, and the environment image can be gotten from the Polyheaven's website. Again, all links are in the description below. Now we will be writing our code on the left and it will be shown on the right. And with that said, let's go quickly through the HTML file. We have an HTML page, we have the header, we have the styles, and then we have the body. The body will only contains a script linking to our JavaScript that we will be writing. Don't memorize these can be found in the documentation of the Three.js. Also, you can copy this entire file from my GitHub page. And that's it for the HTML page. As you can see, we will have only an empty page. Here I have most of the JavaScript code commented except the animation function. But now, let's start with imports. First of all, Three.js is a library which allows us to use the graphics card to draw 3D shapes. Then, the Orbit Controls is an add-on which allows us to control the camera with a mouse. The GLTF loader helps us to load 3D models. Again, you can download the 3D models from my Sketchfab page. We will use the EXR to load EXR images. This is just another image format, just like the famous PNG and JPEG, but it contains more information. And our sky map, downloadable from Polyheavens, will be in that format. Now, the easiest way I found to achieve Caustics is to render the scene multiple times. First with Caustics, then render the scene with normal material, normal colors. Finally, combine both outputs. It's not the most efficient way, I know, but it's the simplest to implement. And to achieve multiple renders, we need the composer, which allows us to render the scene with the default material, then add the caustics to it. The render pass, shader pass, and output pass are just things that the composer can use. After the imports, let's define an object called meta, which contains the wave data. The mwaves is the maximum number of waves our application can handle. Then each wave will have a length defining how wide the wave is, an amplitude for its height, speed for how fast it moves, angle for the movement direction, and finally steepness between 0 and 1, defining how curvy the wave is. Now these parameters are explained in the previous video, link in the description of course. And as you can see, the meta is just an object with variables in it. If we print it to the screen, you can see the variables we will be using to achieve realistic waves using the Gaussian algorithm. Before we continue, let's show the current HTML in the browser by pressing F12 and open the HTML inspector. Now let's go back to the code and create a Three.js renderer. This object allows us to draw scenes, then check if the browser supports WebGL2. Note that the renderer under the hood creates a canvas HTML element. So we can resize the canvas through using the setSize method, passing the window width and height, and then after that we add the canvas to our HTML page by using the append child method. And as you can see in the browser, our canvas is added to the HTML page. Now to be able to draw to the canvas, or to draw with Three.js, we must create a scene resembling the entire world. To be able to see this world, our scene, we need a camera object. It needs a focal length, aspect ratio, and how close and how far we can see. Change its position and add orbit controls. Without an orbit controls, we will not be able to move through the scene. Pass to it the camera we created and the Three.js canvas to capture the mouse events. Then we give it a point to look at and update the orbit controls. After that, let's finally create the composer by passing the Three.js render to it. And as you can see here, I tell the composer to render the scene whenever we call the compose.render in the not commented animation function. However, we see nothing because of course we are rendering an empty world. So let's fill it up. First, let's load our sky map, and our sky map is in EXR format. So let's use the EXR loader to load the image from this location. Then we just use the image as a background for the scene. Now let's import our spoofy skull model. And since I have the skull saved as a .glb format, we can use the gltf loader to load it from this path. Also, I go through all the 3D objects and tell the Three.js to render only the front sides of them. As you can see, the back of the objects are not rendered. Continuing our journey, the get timer, as the name suggests, just get the time and scale it down, nothing more, nothing less. Next, we have the waves to uniform function. This will just transform the metadata we defined earlier into another format. But why? Well, because Three.js uses materials to color 3D objects. So each 3D object is made up of a material and triangles. Triangles are made up of vertices, points defining its location. So then, the Three.js tells the graphics card to draw the triangles using the object's material. The material contains two programs written in a C-like programming language, the vertex and the fragment programs. The material itself is run on the graphics card on the GPU. The graphics card uses the vertex program to project the object vertices to the screen. After that, the point on the screen is colored using the fragment program. After coloring the pixel or the point, of course, the graphics card will return an image to the Three.js application. And when a variable is passed from the JavaScript to the vertex or fragment programs, it's called a uniform. Note that these programs, the vertex and the fragment programs, are called shaders in the realm of computer graphics. So back to the main question, why do we need to transform the waves data to this shape? Well, because Three.js material wrapper require them to be in this format, in this shape, to be able to pass them to the vertex and fragment programs. Now let's output the wave to uniform to the browser. Seems alright. Again, we pass the wave data to the graphics card to be able to generate Gaussian waves. The Gaussian wave subshader here returns a partial shader code with the function called Gaussian, and this function uses the wave data passed as uniforms, go through the data, and change the position and the normal of the point. Check my previous video to understand how to create waves using the Gaussian algorithm. Now, this function returns a new instance of the Caustics material, which contains shaders to generate Caustics, and it uses the GLSL version 3 and passes the wave data as uniforms to the shaders. The GLSL is the name of the C-like programming language that we use inside the shaders. The vertex shader passes the positions to the fragment shader, and then the fragment shader uses the Gaussian algorithm to manipulate the positions at the normal of the point corresponding to the pixel. Since we have the normals, now we can use them in the refraction technique, and I called the refraction function Snell Caustics. First, how close the refracted ray must be to the sun direction to produce caustics, to produce light. Second, we pass the wave's normal, and finally it takes the index of refraction, the IOR. Now let's see the implementation. We have the E, the incident ray, facing upward, and En is the product between the incident ray and the normal of the wave. Finally, we have T, which is the transmitted ray, using the Foley equation. After that, we check how close the refraction is from the sun direction. Note here that I assumed the sun is at noon and it's vertically above the water surface. In summary, if the refracted ray is close to the sun, it returns a positive value. Otherwise, a negative value is returned. And last but not least, let's update the color of the pixel. Now let's see the distance trick. First, it takes the normal of the wave, then the position of the wave, and the maximum and minimum distances which we consider that they will be outputting Caustics. Finally, the plane position. And if we see the implementation, it uses the famous line plane intersection algorithm. The details of this algorithm can be found in the Scratch Pixel website, link is below. So we try to return the distance from the wave to the ground along the wave normal. Then we change the distance to be between minimum and maximum values. After that, we normalize it to be between 0 and 1. 0 means distance is close and 1 means it's far away. So since the trick states that the closer the distance, the lighter the point, so let's consider only the distance is smaller than 0.2, or 20% of the maximum distance. With trial and error, I found that it produces the best results. And again, we color the pixel, and if you check it out, it shows similar results with the refraction technique. However, the distance trick contains much fewer math operations, which make it a little bit more efficient. Finally, here I have created the instance of the Caustics material, and we can visualize the output with that material by rendering the scene, the animate function. And this is how it looks, it just outputs the Caustics. But what we want here is to store the image, not render it to the screen. And to be able to do that, we can create a render target. So here I created that variable, the WebGL render target, then added the animate function to draw Caustics into that variable instead of the screen. Now we just need to add both the scene output, which contains the default material, and the Caustics image, which is stored inside a render target. And to be able to do that, we can add a shader pass to the composer. It will literally just add the value of the render target and the output of the previous render pass. Now we will have the Caustics added to the scene, but to make the results more appealing, we need to add an output pass to the composer. And finally, we are done. The animate function will update the camera controls, updating the mouse movement, the camera movement, then render the Caustics to a variable called render target. After that, the composer will render the scene, and then add the render target to add Caustics to the scene. Again, the code can be found on my GitHub. Feel free to subscribe, clone it, and play with it. This is it for today. Hope you enjoyed the second gem, and I see you soon. Peace. Salam.